This is an old Christian hymn that I found a guitar arrangement for a while back. I worked on it for a while and then completely forgot about it for many years until it was part of a funeral service for the child of a Bible study friend whose child had been delivered stillborn. A group of us had been praying for months for Mom and the baby during the pregnancy, so when the news of the baby's death came, it was a huge shock and very discouraging. I can't imagine what it was like for Mom and Dad. During the funeral service, Mom and Dad shared how, in reflecting back, they could see God preparing them for the season of grief they now found themselves in by being drawn to read and enter into the stories of other people's tragic suffering. God, in His faithfulness, had been preparing these parents for the grief that had now come to them. While Dad was sharing, I found my attention being drawn to one of his children who had stood up in the front row. This little guy had been doing a great job of sitting quietly for most of the service. But as Dad was speaking, he had silently stood up, wrapped his shirt over his face, and was swaying back and forth, just kind of face wrestling his shirt. Having worked a number of years teaching young children, I appreciate how difficult it is for little boys to sit for prolonged lengths of time. So I was not at all surprised or offset by this behavior. It was not only understandable that the little boy would behave in this way, it was very endearing. His presence and behavior was a welcome diversion from the heaviness of the occasion. I reflexively glanced at Mom and Dad to see how they were reacting. Different parents react differently when their children grow restless in public. So when I saw Mom not panicking as she allowed the boy to wiggle, I relaxed and kind of began daydreaming and appreciating what a blessing little boys and their behavior are. It's like they're little wiggly agents of chaos. I imagined what it probably looked like for Mom to get this little guy and his brother ready that morning. How she probably had to do the thing where she licked her hand and then used it to force down the last stubborn shock of his hair onto his head. I was thinking in my own life how, as a teacher, it's not unusual that I find myself tying 3 to 7 pairs of shoes every day, and how each time I do, I can't help but notice how cute they are and how all these little guys have their cute little backpacks and lunch boxes and raincoats. So the service eventually came to a close, and we all dismissed to the gravesite for the burial. While we were all waiting for the interment ceremony to begin, my eye was caught again by one of the boys. To my surprise, he was clearly preparing to do a little tinkling right there among the gathering crowd. And yet, from where I stood farther away, it seemed as though no one else had caught on to what was about to happen. I began to think to myself, does anyone else see this about to happen? I hope that woman in the blue dress is light on her feet. As I actually moved toward the situation, a commotion broke out that immediately drew everyone's attention to what was about to happen. The crisis was averted, and what followed was a moment where conversation was somewhat muted and hang fire. It was the dad who broke the ice of the situation when, after being told what had happened, responded by saying something like, is that my boy spraying on someone's headstone? And in this way he gave us all permission to laugh at what had happened, and to again appreciate the diversion that these wiggly little agents of chaos can bring to us. This started me again thinking of how much fun it is to get to work with children, what with all their cute little shoes and cute little backpacks and cute little lunch boxes. I was still in this frame of mind as I watched Mom and Dad putting their child in the ground, and I reflexively noticed how cute the little infant casket they were holding was. Very carefully crafted wood painted white with smart brassy hardware handholds. It was then that I kind of came to and realized what I was watching. A mom and dad putting their child in the ground and realizing what a horrible thing it is that such a cute little casket should exist or need to be used. Now, as it turns out, the arrangement of this guitar version of Great Is Thy Faithfulness kind of mirrors the emotional story arc of how I experienced the funeral service. It starts out slow and melancholy for the first verse and chorus, but the second verse is arranged in a swing style that starts out kind of sassy and playful and then turns kind of chaotic, kind of like a wiggly little boy. And then just as the song ends, it turns melancholy again.